Imagine this. Far in the Scottish Highlands, where ancient mountains stand like silent giants watching over time itself, where mist rolls slowly through valleys like a living shadow, and cold winds move across old stones as if carrying whispers from centuries long gone. There lies a lake, long, dark, and silent. Loch Ness. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Just water, sky, mist, and distant hills reflected on a cold surface. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming, nothing that should capture the imagination of the world. And yet, the longer someone stares at it, the more something begins to feel wrong. As if the lake is not just a body of water, but something alive, something aware, something that might be watching back from below the surface. And for nearly a century now, Loch Ness has been more than just a lake. It has become home to one of the most famous mysteries in human history, the Loch Ness Monster, or as the world calls it, Nessie. And behind all the stories, all the photographs, all the reported sightings, there is one question that refuses to die. Is there really something living in Loch Ness? Or are we only chasing shadows shaped by fear, imagination, and expectation? Because if there is one thing humanity has always proven, it is that we are deeply drawn to the unknown. We fear it, but we also need it. Because without mystery, the world feels too complete, too final. And Loch Ness is the kind of mystery that never truly ends. To understand why, we have to go far back, far beyond cameras, far beyond modern science, back to a time when stories were the only way humans explained the world around them. Around the 6th century, an Irish missionary named Saint Columba traveled through what is now Scotland. According to ancient accounts written centuries later, he arrived near waters connected to Loch Ness, and there he encountered something unusual. A group of people gathered at the riverbank. Their faces were filled with grief and fear. They were burying a man. When asked what had happened, they gave an answer that would echo through history. They said the man had been attacked by a creature from the water, something massive, something that rose suddenly from the depths, dragged him under, and disappeared again into the dark water. A story that sounds like legend, but for them, it was real. And this is where the tale begins to grow beyond myth. Saint Columba reportedly did something even more unusual. He ordered one of his followers to swim into the water, an act that, to modern ears, sounds almost impossible to imagine. Because if the creature was real, then the water was not just water. It was danger itself. At first, nothing happened. The water remained still, quiet, almost too quiet. Then slowly, ripples began to form on the surface. Small at first, then spreading wider, until something beneath the water began to move. Something large, something approaching. People watching from the shore began to panic. Some stepped back, others prayed, because whatever was coming was not natural in their understanding of the world. But Saint Columba stood still, and according to the legend, he raised his hand and commanded the creature to stop. And then, something impossible happened. It stopped, turned away, and disappeared back into the depths, never to be seen again, at least according to that moment in history. For centuries after that, the story survived only as folklore, passed down by voices around fires, told in cold nights when the wind outside felt too strong. A story meant to warn, or to entertain, or simply to explain the unknown. But for a long time, the world outside Scotland paid it no attention. Until the modern age arrived. And everything changed. In 1933, a new road was built around Loch Ness. A simple development, nothing that seemed important at the time. But that road changed everything. Because suddenly, people could see the lake more clearly than ever before. And what they saw began to change the story forever. Reports started to appear. People claimed they saw something in the water. Something large. Something moving in a way that did not match any known animal. A local couple reported a massive creature crossing the surface. Its shape too large, too strange, too unnatural to ignore. Newspapers picked up the story immediately, and within days, Loch Ness was no longer just a quiet lake in Scotland. It had become a global mystery. Then came 1934, the year everything exploded into worldwide attention. A photograph appeared. Simple, black and white, but powerful enough to shape history. It showed something rising from the water. A small head, a long neck, and a shape that looked like something prehistoric. It became known as the surgeon's photograph, and for decades, it was considered the strongest evidence that Nessie existed. People believed the mystery was solved. The monster was real. But science does not rest on belief. And decades later, the truth finally surfaced. The photograph was a hoax, a small model placed on a toy submarine, a carefully constructed illusion. And suddenly, the strongest evidence collapsed. And in theory, the mystery should have ended there. But it did not, because something strange happened afterward. Sightings continued, year after year. People kept reporting strange shapes in the water. Some saw a long body moving just beneath the surface. Others saw unusual waves forming without wind. Some captured blurry images of dark shapes disappearing into the depths. And surprisingly, not all of these witnesses were casual tourists. Some were fishermen, some were pilots, some were people who had lived near the lake their entire lives. People who knew the water well enough to recognize when something did not belong. So the question grew deeper. If Nessie is not real, then what are people actually seeing? Scientists stepped in. Sonar scans were performed. Underwater cameras were deployed. The lake was mapped and measured with modern technology. And yet, Loch Ness refused to give a clear answer. Sometimes sonar detected large moving objects. Sometimes unusual readings appeared deep below the surface. But nothing was ever confirmed. Nothing was ever captured clearly enough to end the debate. And so the mystery remained open. Some scientists suggested large eels. Others suggested misidentifications of natural phenomena. Logs, waves, optical illusions caused by light and water interaction. But none of these explanations fully accounted for every sighting. And that is where Loch Ness becomes something more than a scientific question. It becomes a psychological one, because sometimes what people see is not only what exists, but what they expect might exist. And yet, even with that idea, the mystery refuses to disappear completely, because there are still moments, still reports, still strange signals from deep water that cannot be easily dismissed. And so, Loch Ness remains what it has always been, a place suspended between reality and imagination, between science and story, between what is known and what is still unknown. And maybe, just maybe, on quiet nights when the mist is thick and the world above the surface is completely still, something is still moving far below. Slow, silent, and unseen. Waiting. Or simply existing. And until we have a definitive answer, Loch Ness will continue to do what it has always done best: keep it secret.